Hello and welcome to the Cosmic Alignment Lab podcast. I'm Ishita, your host, and also the founder of the Cosmic Touch community. And this is our podcast where we bring leaders across different disciplines to share their wisdom with us and almost enlighten us towards new knowledge, new concepts, and new ideas. And today we have with us Richard, who is also a highly experienced and knowledgeable professional in the fields of Reiki, Peruvian shamanism, Randerism, I don't even know what that is, energy work, cult, and metaphysics. So he has over 20 years of experience and training in these areas. And he is also a master practitioner who offers his clients a unique blend of skills and expertise. So his knowledge and insights make him an invaluable asset to his clients, and I have personally worked with him, and he has really transformed my life. So welcome, Richard. So good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So
Thank you very
Richard,
much. I'm happy to be here.
awesome. Let's get into it. So tell us,
Uh,
what has been your deconditioning story in your life, and how did you find yourself on this path of connecting spiritual and conscious practices into your day to day?
That's a really good question. Now, when you say deconditioning, can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean by
Yeah,
deconditioning?
absolutely. So for me, what deconditioning means is breaking out of the patterns and the systems that we've been taught to live within, whether it's for work, whether it's for lifestyle, family, any of these kind of spaces, and create our own path.
I probably don't have the most typical answer for deconditioning. I think that growing up, I was really fortunate in the fact that I was able to always kind of be on my own path. Nobody ever really tried to push me in one direction. I was always able to kind of do my thing because I don't think anyone could really have forced it. I think they tried to, but I was a little too independent for them to be able to. So I always was sort of on a different kind of path. I think one thing my mother always said, and I actually had a kindergarten teacher who said this, that I always danced to the beat of my own drum. And I think that has really been the case throughout my entire life. So, as far as getting onto a spiritual path or into this realm of work and life, I didn't, I don't remember a point where I wasn't really interested in it. So, I can't say there was a moment in my life where I woke up and was like, this is what I want to do, or this is where I'm going. I think I was always as far back as I can remember, just on this road, whether I liked it or not.
Beautiful. So it was almost like you were on this path already and you just kept evolving and discovering yourself through it.
Yeah, yeah. I think if anything, I tried to get off the path, to be honest with you.
Wow, really? Why was
Yeah,
that? And what was that
well,
experience like?
because I wanted to be more normal, I guess, I wanted to be like other people. I wanted to fit into uh, a church or something like that. I just didn't ever really belong in those places, and everybody else kind of they did, and I really didn't fit in with that. Um, I grew up going. I growing up, I went to church and to all sorts of places, synagogue, everywhere you can imagine. I grew up around a lot of different types of people, so I got to experience a lot of different things, but I was never really mainstream. You know what I mean? Like I never really could say, this is what I am, this is my path, this is what I believe. Because I really felt like I believed all of it.
Yeah.
None of it was really um there wasn't one that was true or false. Um It was all sort of there. But I did try for a while to just be, one thing and try to really kind of get off my own path. And it didn't work out very well.
That's really interesting. I think, you know, what you're talking about, it's almost like, you know, the generalism within spirituality, where you see that it is all so interconnected, and each, if you're talking about religion or spiritual practice or any kind of healing modality, like they're all very, very interconnected and they almost come from the same source, right? So I think this is something that not a lot of people are able to embrace. So I really think it's very cool that you were able to like learn this or understand this from a young age and follow it through.
Thank you. Looking back, it was pretty amazing how it all worked out. It didn't make sense back then, really. But now, looking at it, I have to say I was really grateful for that. And I'm grateful for the opportunities, the people that came into my life, and just the way I was raised, very open minded environment. Coming from the, American South, that's a rare thing for a lot of people. Um, there's a lot of stigma in this part of the country, in the US, and I never really had to fight against that too much. I was really lucky, really lucky. Um, didn't face too much discrimination, so to speak. Um, but I also think that, I mean, you would get, I would get told certain things like, "Oh, we're gonna pray for you," or "You're going to," or something like that. Those things happen, but um, I never took them. They never offended me because I always said, "Well, I appreciate the fact that you care so much.
I
Thank you
love
for taking
that.
the time to me." You could sit there and get mad about it, or you could just look at it like what it is. They obviously care a lot if they're going to tell you that if they're going to take the time to tell you something like that, then it means something to them. So I took it as a compliment gift.
That's a really beautiful reframe, right? And like even taking these, I don't know, perhaps negative comments or things which are supposed to hurt us in a positive way, and understanding, having a deeper understanding that this fear is ultimately stemming from a place of love, you know, and not falling into the trap of the fear wording. I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are certainly people out there who do those things and they do mean them to hurt, but I I don't know. I couldn't really take it that way necessarily because I knew that it was just something about me that I couldn't change.
Yeah,
And I wouldn't so and I think people automatically knew that. I think sometimes you just emit some sort of a vibration or something, for lack of better words, to people that just kind of tells them that's just who they are. Leave them
yeah,
alone. you know?
exactly. Don't try to change
And
them.
right. And so I got along with everybody. I wasn't really in like some crowd that were just like me, because there wasn't a lot. And I still don't go into crowds that are just like only people who are into the kind of stuff that I'm into. I stay very eclectic, all sorts of people. I like it like that because really it's like what you said, things coming from the same vein. They do. They're not separated,
Mm.
not in the essence of it. The core, where it all comes from, is coming from a similar stream.
Right.
You know, um, it's just the way someone approaches it, the way someone applies it in their lives might be a little different based on their spiritual practices or their
Yeah.
beliefs as far as like in the traditional manner. But
Yeah.
otherwise, they are all very interconnected for sure.
I love how you said that, you know, like we all come from the same vein, like the same vein of Mother Earth, of the universe, whatever that might be, that source. And which is why I think it's important to also stay broad and like meet all kinds of people and learn from all kinds of people, which is something that I'm also embracing in my life right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
definitely. It's the best thing you could do.
so my next question to you, Richard, is, you know, you've shared it with us that you do a couple of different spiritual practices. You do Reiki, you do Peruvian shamanism, and things that I can't even pronounce. So what would you say is the common thread that you've noticed while working with your clients, while working with these energies? What is the common thread that connects all of these practices together?
Um, Transformation.
Mm,
People want to change. You can call that healing if you want. I think that's probably what most people would say. I don't always like that word. I think it's a little overused.
mm,
And I don't really consider myself to be, I don't know that the title of healer is a very, um, it's a special one in my mind. And I don't consider myself that, even if I do what would be considered healing work, I wouldn't call myself that. I really look at it more as the core that brings all those practices together, and what that main energetic component really is transformation. People want to change. People want to experience something different. They want to adapt. They want to mold and reshape themselves in some way, shape, or form. Whether that is something with their physical health, their spiritual, um, uh, their emotional side, or other things in their life, whether that be um, you know their finances, their family life, their um, romantic life, all of those things. So it goes way beyond just a little, you know, narrow field. It and that's why I feel that with the things that I bring to the table, what I practice is a little, it's broad, but with my clients I work with a very broad set of issues, and I like that. It enables me to um do so much more.
that's beautiful. I like how you said it's ultimately about the process of transformation, right? Like that's what people
Yeah.
come to us for. And that's what all of these energetic practices help us support these people or even ourselves for that matter. So I think that is really, really beautiful. And thank you so much for mentioning that. I would love to know more about your experience as a healer and especially, you know, like I want to showcase almost like our side of the transformation when, let's say, a client works with us or someone comes to us and says, hey, I'm going through XYZ challenge in my life. I feel stuck, nothing's working. What is your experience of that process?
um I am sitting right there with them. I have to get myself into a position where I understand exactly what they're going through to the best of my ability. And then when I go in to do my work, all of my focus is on that. And so for me, I am very strategic about um, how I work with clients. Um, when I'm talking with someone, I have a piece of paper out and I start writing down keywords that they say, different little things that come out, and they say, "Oh, that's it. That's the issue. That's the issue." Because most of the time, people aren't really going to know what the issue is. They just know that, hey, there's this thing that I want to change. But when you want to go in and actually do that work and to help them, you need to find the little pieces of the problem, the things you can grab and take out. Like, this is the thing we need to tweak and change, or that's the thing we need to tweak and change. Um, you can be very broad with your approach to changing things in people's lives, or you can listen, you read between the lines with a client, you know, and look and see what are they really saying to me, because generally they don't always know exactly what they're trying to say, you know, they're conveying it. So I feel that, you know, in my position with them, I have to get into the, you know, passenger seat with them for a minute and really hear them. And then I have to take over, you know, and then I go and do my work, whatever that may be, whether that's Reiki or whether that's some ritual that I perform, however I do that, you know, and it's different for everybody. Um, I customize everything because I don't feel like you can, I feel like everybody's an individual, so you have to customize it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So for me, the most comfortable way to do it is to approach everyone's issue as something very different and unique. But I take over in that point from that point on, and then after I do whatever work I'm doing for them, then it's their turn, and I work with them, you know, through that. If you are asking more about what changes happen on the practitioner's point, as far as like what they're doing working with the people, I would say that you also are transforming. If nothing else, you're learning. You're gathering knowledge. Every session I do for someone is different, and I learn something new every time. And that's the beauty of it. And so over time, you really get like a encyclopedia of information that you
Mm.
develop over time with your
Yeah.
client, and
Yeah.
that enables you to help go even further. You know, um, there are things that when I first started out working with people publicly, um, that, you know, I look back at now and say I would have handled that differently, you know, but it was all those those transformations that I was helping to facilitate in that person's life made transformed me too. And so it's you go through it with them, but you try not to um, you have to separate yourself a little bit, definitely.
Yeah,
You know, you have to
definitely. Not get too attached
create
or
some sort of a barrier. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
you do. And, then you have to be willing to walk with them afterwards. You know, you can't just say, okay, here, we're done now. Go along your way and not be there for them. You know, a lot of times those are really big shifts that you're creating for
Yeah,
people, or you're, you know,
exactly.
trying to open up and make happen. So it's important that you stay with them for a while.
That's beautiful. And I really loved how you mentioned also about like listening to the story, but creating your own almost data out of it. You know, like the
Mm-hmm.
challenges that the client mentions, it's almost like intuitive listening, you know, where it's like your intuition starts creating like, ah, I see this dot connects here, that dot connects there, you know. So it's actually a lot of systems thinking, you know, and like a lot of creative thinking.
Well, it's very analytical. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
something that people, when they see the types of things that we do, they think of it as very abstract. And it isn't always. At least the way I approach it, it's very much both. I'm very analytical with a client. So I take two approaches: the abstract side that you have to have in order to go and do certain ritual work. You know, shamanic activities are generally going to be very abstract, but I don't walk into the whole thing going, okay, I'm just going to follow this, you know, imagine, you know, this long winding road of imagination or a stream of thought necessarily. No, I look at it in a very analytical way. Um, the way I always say that I operate is like if you see the football coach and before the game writing out a plan, That's how my papers look when I'm talking with somebody. I'm already formulating how to fix this thing and then seeing the big key points. So it's really just active listening, really paying attention and seeing what, okay, if they want this, then this is what we really need to work with. It's a, and then you see how comfortable they are with it. But for me, that's just how I approach it. Everybody has a different way, but I like to combine the analytical with the more
Energetic.
what's the word? Yeah, with the more creative. And I like to combine the more scientific with the metaphysic, because they all go together. They do. You can't have one without the other.
Exactly. I love that. It's like combining the left brain with the right brain, the masculine analytical side with the
Exactly.
feminine creative. And yeah, I
Yes.
love that. And that's so interesting. It's so important to mention this aspect of anyone who does energy work. It's not just like woo woo in the air, we're just making up
Right.
things. It's very like strategic. It's very like there is a plan that we follow, there is a certain ritual we might follow, and the results that someone like experiences as a client, they are very much linked to the work that we do.
Yeah. And very much so. And I think that's one of the areas where we get a bad name, as people don't understand that there is a process. It's not just woo woo, we go through training, we study. It's not just, making things up as you go. There's actually a path and there's a process. Some are less ritualized than others, but sometimes they're the ritual. You follow it, you learn those things, you know how to do it. Um, and then, like I said, other times it's a bit of a looser format. But even then, you have to know through your experience and through the studies that you have done when you can deviate from that ritual side and
Yeah,
go into a more looser, you have to know those things. It's not, you don't go into it blindly.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
some.
It's kind of like, like when you're on a trail, like if you're hiking somewhere new, you might want to take the path which you know already, which other people have told you. But then once you've done that hike maybe 2 or 3 times, you can kind of just, figure out your own trails and find a different path to getting to wherever it is that you want to
Exactly.
get to. So I think it's also very systematic that way. It's
Exactly.
very much like a learning curve. Yeah.
No,
So
you're
my
you're
next
totally
question.
correct in that. I like the way you put that.
Thank you. So my next question, Richard, is are your thoughts about the business of spirituality? Like as practitioners and as energy workers, there's very often this perception that we should not be paid, or it should be all for free, like because it's energetic, it's something we can't see, something intangible. But I'm curious to know your thoughts about building a business with a spiritual practice.
That's the hardest part. This is where, some knowledge of history really comes in handy, because you have to understand and look back and say, okay, people who've done this kind of work in the past always received some sort of a, exchange, some sort of compensation for their time and their work. You put a lot of energy into this work. It's very demanding. It's very physically, mentally, um, spiritually draining and challenging, and you are putting yourself into a position that other people on a day-to-day basis never really enter into. There's a whole, when you go into a spiritual world, it is truly a different world. There are aspects of that world that can be dangerous. There are aspects of that are very challenging, and they're going to, test you. So again, and there's that training that goes into it. It's not praying for somebody. There's a big difference, see? And I think that really this idea that it should all be um, done for, nothing, or for just out of um, just completely free, it comes hasn't been that idea hasn't been around for really such a long time. I think what we see now is we have this view of how, maybe the Christian churches act, which is funny because most of the people who come to us are people who have broken away from Christianity, but they come with a mentality and a mindset and a worldview that is still very, very shaped by that path that they were on before, and they don't realize it. But let's put it this way too, if you're coming from a traditional, I'm just going to use a Christian background where you aren't, paying your priest or anything like that. In reality, you're giving him a house generally. He has a house, he's fed, he gets paid, your minister gets paid. They all make money, very good money, oftentimes, and they're very well taken care of. We don't have that. Okay. So, and you, without some sort of an energetic exchange, there is something that is very difficult to explain. I wish I had words to truly encapsulate what I'm going to say. But there's something that will happen if you are not getting some sort of an exchange, whether that's money. Obviously, in today's world, we live in a, very capitalistic society. Money is going to be the number one best way to compensate someone. In the past, maybe it was a chicken, or, some vegetables, or, a goat, but you gave something, but in today's world, a goat or a chicken might not be the most useful thing, so you have to live up to the times that we're living, but even if, in indigenous societies, when you look at shamans and those situations, you do some sort of an exchange, you give them something. And you look at, cunning folk in Britain and places like that, you generally paid those people for their time, for their work. And without that, there's interesting things don't flow as well.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
you as a practitioner it's hard to explain why that is, because even you as a practitioner may want to do things for free. And I think most of us have a desire to not charge, but I will say this, I don't know what it is exactly. I think it's more of there's a really reciprocity is very important.
Mhm.
And in order for things to work well in life, there's a give and there's a take. And if you constantly give,
Mhm.
you're not that you've upset the balance of
Yeah, there's
life,
a
really.
depletion. Exactly.
Exactly. And as we are people working very much with energy, it's important that we maintain an energetic balance and an energetic integrity. It also is a way to show people that this is not just some frivolous activity,
Yeah.
that we're professionals, we have studied. You wouldn't go to uh, not trying to put people on the same pedestal as a doctor, but you wouldn't go to a doctor who has studied and done all this and not expect to have compensation there, would you?
Mhm.
It
Exactly.
really doesn't match. But people will get very upset about that, and so it's hard. But really, I think if people would look at history and look back and see, where these ideas came from and start to look at their worldview a little bit differently. They would see that no, there needs to be some sort of exchange. For
Yeah.
me personally, is it always money? No, it's not. I mean, if someone comes to me and they really need something and they don't have the money necessarily for it, I'm not going to turn people away. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I think that's where that spiritual side comes in to play, because you start to see people have hard times. And I'm not just going to shut the door on somebody if they can't pay me a listed price, if they want to break up a payment, whatever depends on the person, depends on the situation. But I if someone is really good at something that I'm not good at, like computer skills, I'm not a tech savvy person, but a client might be. And if they can help me out with some of my tech problems, with our website stuff, hey, that's an even exchange.
Right.
It
I love
works.
that.
You see what I
Yeah,
mean? There's an exchange that goes on. Yeah.
exactly. In the
So I
form of
don't
either
turn people
money or
away,
time.
but there really is some sort of like a magic key almost that happens. Like if you don't have that part there, someone's depleted somewhere and it's almost like the work doesn't really stick, even though you as a practitioner doing it may feel like I want to do this out of the goodness of my heart, you know? It's not for lack of trying the work. It's just something that I think it really is goes back to that balancing energy.
I love that.
So if you,
That's beautiful.
yeah,
I mean, just to add,
I,
like, sorry, what you said about, the difference between praying and actually like sending energy or healing, right? Like, prayer is a
mhm,
very almost passive experience. Like, okay, I'm praying for someone that they heal, that this happens or that happens. But sending energy is a very active experience. It's a very like
it is.
you're very consciously doing something. Just because it's not tangible doesn't mean that it's very much like full of love, effort, kindness, and
Oh
even
yeah,
like brilliant intentions, and that is something that really stuck with me, like it's not the same as just sending a prayer. Like really
it's very
beautiful.
different,
Yeah.
very
And
very
the whole
different,
thing
and I'm
about, yeah, receiving an exchange, like I so agree with that. And, like I've worked personally also and not had any energy exchange or, felt like less compensated. And somehow, not just have I experienced like an impact from that, but so has the client that worked with me, you know?
exactly,
And they're like, yeah,
yeah,
okay, maybe we need to do another session, and this time we pay the full price, or we do this or that, or whatever.
yeah,
And things change or shift very differently. In fact,
they
I've
do.
also like, right? And sometimes, like, just when someone schedules a session and like pays for it, they already start receiving the energy. Like, it's crazy.
It is really interesting how it works. It also gives you the knowledge as a practitioner that this person really is interested in the work that you do.
Yeah.
So it holds you to a certain level of, what's the word I'm looking for? It keeps you at a certain, it holds you accountable. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way. Holds you
Agreed.
accountable because you know that person has entrusted you. They believe in the work that you do. They paid for you to help them out. So you know that, okay, this person's actually interested in receiving the help I'm giving. Sometimes you will find that there are people who, if you're always doing things for free, um, they're not really interested in it. So they're not even going to really open themselves up enough to actually receive the energy work. It's a very, and again, this is where the knowledge has to come in. Um, you can't just do it. It is very different from prayer. Prayer is asking a deity to intercede. This is not the same thing. prayer might be a part of some of the activities that you do, but it's not all that. It's not just that. There's an active process. Again, you study, you learn. You should be compensated for the time and for your background and for how much you've put into this art. And it really is an art, and it's also science in a way. I see it as being both. And over time, the more and more you are practicing and you're doing this type of work, you realize just how much of it is an art and a science. It's
Yes.
not blind. You have to have a person who's got some knowledge. They've got a good foundation of what they're doing and how to do it. And um, every practitioner may have a different approach to working with the same problem, but it comes from their background and how they learned, you know? So is it all going to be exactly the same? No, but it's going to be based on that person's how much they've put into the job, how much they've put into the practice, how dedicated they've been.
Absolutely. I love that, Richard. Like, this is, really inspiring to hear as a practitioner and also like empowering to hear. It's like, it's kind of the into it is what you get out of it. So, Richard, my last question to you is what is your spirit animal and why?
Mm. Well, um, I think that here's my approach to spirit animals is probably a little different, and I do it based on the tradition that I was trained in, and I believe that I call them tutelary animals because I feel that they come in to teach us things. So I don't necessarily feel, I mean, there's so many different terms you can use for these spirit animals, they totem animals, are they, spirit guides, are they, there's so many different names you can attribute to them. You could also make categories and distinctions between each term. But I see it as this throughout your life, different animals will come in. And you may have an animal with you for a day, a year, month, a week, for as long as you need it. And then you might have one that's there for life. So they do change. Um, if you feel some connection with an animal, that could be your spirit animal reaching out and saying, "Hey, this is what I am." And that can be a good call for you to investigate more and research more into what that means. Um, there's so much more to it than just looking in a book and seeing what it means. I think you should
Yeah.
develop a relationship with spirit because it is a spirit. And that's something a lot of people don't want to put that work into, but it's a relationship, and it is a spirit. And that working with spirits is its own art form as well, you know. But for me, my spirit animal, I will give you. I won't say exactly what it is, because it's one in my initiation process and the shamanic initiation process is where when you go through your first one, you go through a symbolic death, and you go into the underworld, and your body is picked apart and it decays. You go through a whole ritual death, and you're put back together by a spirit being, and that is the spirit animal that comes in, whatever that animal is, and that becomes it's just there, and it stays with you. I will say that for me, I've had different birds come in a lot. Um, uh, I've had all sorts of different things come through for me. Um, I've even had um, an octopus recently was one that kind of stuck out to me. And upon researching that more, I understood exactly why it was coming into my life at that time. Um, so, and one of the things that I do with clients is I will go and journey to meet their spirit animals. That's one of my favorite sessions to do for people because the information that you will get by interacting with their spirit animals is unbelievable. I mean, they will say so many things. It always, um, I mean, I never walk away from a session not being somewhat surprised, but those in particular, the information I will get from their animals, if they're willing to come through, um, usually they always are. And people have more than one. They just have a message, you know, and they will deliver some very profound insights. Um, so I do think that they are incredibly important. What we learn from animals is so much, you get so much more from them than you think. But look at it this way, you know, for most mythology, what came first? The humans or the animals? Generally, the animals are there first. So they have a inherent wisdom within them that's greater than ours in a
Yeah.
way. So they all contain, I guess you can call it a medicine based on their species. And then there are your individual spirit animal will have its own attributes beyond just the species or what you might go and look up in a book or online nowadays. Um, so forging that relationship is so important. Um, but yeah, I think as far as like why you have them, I have to say it's not something you really pick. I think you can definitely go and see there's an animal that you really admire. You could say, invite that being into my life. If I could, you could call upon that spirit, and there are various ways you could do that. But you could call and ask for it to come and help you, you ask for it to share its wisdom and its power with you, and teach you. So the very fascinating part of that. I love spirit animal work.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think I agree with that so much. Like, there's one animal which kind of sticks with you almost throughout life, and then there are other species and beings, and it could be animals, it could be birds, it could be insects sometimes, even butterflies. They come with like specific messages or at specific times in your life to I don't know, enlighten you towards something. And yeah, I like that you made that distinction, and I'm gonna respect that you don't want to share your spirit animal with us, but I am very, very curious personally. Um, but seriously, thank you so much, Richard, for being on our podcast today and for sharing your wisdom and so many gems of like insights with us. I think you have a very unique perspective on what spirituality, healing, or even transformation for people looks like. And
I'm so grateful that you invited me to talk, and I hope this helps people. And I'm very grateful that I got to work with you, and really happy that you invited me onto the show. And I hope it um, was helpful.
yeah, thank you. And I also want to mention to all of our listeners that Richard is actually the one who initiated me into becoming a Reiki master. So he is the one who kind of allowed me to feel and receive the energy so completely. and he really like supported me through the transformation that I went through as well. And we will pop some kind of information in the description on how you can reach out to him. And thank you so much for listening today. And um, yeah, if you want more information about the Cosmic Touch community, we're a community of creative change makers, and one of our very key pillar is actually transformation and healing. So yeah, I'll pop more information in the description, and we will find you on the next episode. Thank you so much, Richard.
Thank you.